Can these characters actually will happiness into existence? As we watch Cassie and Rue both experience life-changing events in this episode that could possibly lead down a path of redemption or absolute misery. What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. Today we are diving deep into Euphoria Season 3, Episode 6. Man, this episode was packed with so many interesting insights, from Alamo's past to Cassie's new career to Rue thinking that she saw God. Let's break down all the deeper meanings from all the scenes, break down the important themes, and so much more. Full spoilers ahead. We open this week's episode with a very unexpected backstory about Alamo as a kid. As Rue says, the coldest female he ever knew was his mama. This opening scene possibly reshapes our notions about Alamo as a person. Cut to the great Danielle Deadwyler, who I believe is one of the best actors working today, as she truly embodies Mama Brown for us in this opening scene, which may be my favorite opening scene of the season so far. Now we can see her calculated determination as she's applying her makeup, choosing her outfit, as her mind is clearly set on one thing, and that being providing for her and her son, no matter who gets caught in her web of lies. We can see early on that Mama Brown is looking for stability and for someone to help lift them out of their struggle. And for her, a potential temporary partner isn't a lover, but as we'll find out later, he's a resource. As we watch her prepping little Alamo with instructions on what to say, what not to say, and how to act, she wants to ensure this new man sees a picture of domestic harmony, that Alamo likes him, and vice versa. This all being for her son, who she says is the most important thing to her in the world. It's here we meet the not-so-good-looking man by the name of Preston, as we can see that he's not your typical Prince Charming. He's got scars on his face that immediately tells you that he's been through something. But from the moment he steps in, he's respectful. He shakes young Alamo's hand and looks him right in the eye, just like Mama Brown coached Alamo to expect. And on this initial exchange, you can see that these two are in their own ways trying to impress one another. Preston trying to impress Mama Brown and her son, and little Alamo trying his best to be a good son, trying to impress Preston for his mom. Now we see Preston gifting Alamo a Hershey's chocolate bar, and it's a small gesture, but for a kid of his age, it's a sign that maybe this is someone that he can trust. In this moment, you can see that Alamo senses that this is a good man, a God-fearing man, and a man who, most importantly, clearly has good intentions for his mom. We see them in church as the choir is singing, and Preston and Mama Brown are holding hands, and you can see Mama Brown is getting emotional. For a moment, we, like Alamo, believe that she's truly found herself a good man. This paints a perfect picture for a new start for this family in the making. Now we see Preston and Alamo are out enjoying some ice cream and bonding, and you'll notice this guy behind them looking at them, and we will see this same guy again in a little bit. Now this is where Preston opens up and tells Alamo about his past, about an accident at a chemical factory that left him with his scars, as he also shares that he's awaiting a large legal settlement. Now you can see the dreams in his eyes and the genuine desire to build a better life for them all. He talks about getting Alamo into a private school, about making life truly better for Alamo and his mama, and again, you can only imagine what Alamo is thinking at his young age. This isn't just a stepfather situation for him, but maybe someone he can grow to be like one day, and someone he can look up to as a hero. Now, as some time goes by, the settlement finally comes in, and Preston, true to his word, showers them with gifts. We see him getting Miss Brown some jewelry, a whole new wardrobe, and some flashy furniture that transforms their apartment into something brand new. It's now summertime and life is good, and it feels like a real fairy tale come true. Preston tells Alamo he plans to propose to his mom, promising to be there for them, unlike Alamo's biological dad. Alamo believes this. He believes in Preston. He believes in his mama happiness, and he believes in this new secure future. But this is where we are reminded that this is Euphoria, ladies and gentlemen, where good things don't last long and they aren't as they always appear to be. Now, as they return home from a beautiful day at the beach, they find their apartment is completely empty. Everything Preston had bought them, all the symbols of their new hopeful life, was just stolen. But here is where we can see that Mama Brown doesn't react with sadness, but instead she acts like this was meant to be. She calls this a bad omen, and in a flash, she's packing their remaining clothes and prepares to leave. We see Preston crying, begging, and promising he can fix this, but it's too late. We see Miss Brown takes Alamo and leaves him standing there broken, promising to fix something that's unfixable. Cut to a new city, we see Mama Brown as calm as one can be as she tells Alamo that Preston was just simply bad luck. We watch as she freshens up, much like she did at the beginning of this episode, and here is where we get the reveal. She walks into a living room to greet a new man, the same guy that we saw at the ice cream truck watching Preston and Alamo. Mama Brown and this new man planned the entire robbery. She hustled Preston. The bad omen was just an exit strategy, a convenient excuse to cut ties to make off with her share of the things he bought for them, leaving this man broken in so many different ways. The coldest female he ever knew was his mama. Rue's words hit different now, don't they? Because the con wasn't Preston. Preston was the victim. The real con was Alamo. The con was his belief that his mother loved Preston and that she truly was trying to build a family with him and secure a future. He believed in his dream only to see his mother shatter it, revealing her true nature as a calculated hustler. Man, this opening scene was great, and it was just a reminder that when Sam Levinson actually thinks about things, he can still make compelling stories. This opening scene just really explained everything about how he operates today. This betrayal by the woman he loved and trusted most planted a seed of profound mistrust deep down in his soul. He made a promise to himself that day that he would never end up like Preston, vulnerable, emotionally invested, and ultimately outsmarted and left with nothing. And perhaps even more importantly, he promised himself that he would never let a female outsmart him. Let's think about this opening for a second and think about how it correlates to the treatment of women that we've seen from Alamo so far this season. Alamo sees every woman, every relationship as a potential transaction, a potential trap. Love is weakness. Emotion is leverage to be exploited. He doesn't open himself up because opening up means becoming Preston. He can't afford to be naive and believe in good intentions. He sees deception everywhere because his own mother, the source of his safety and love, was the ultimate deceiver. This flashback was the blueprint to Alamo's entire character arc. His inability to truly love or trust women all stemmed from that day where he watched his mom abandon a man who loved them after orchestrating his downfall for profit. He learned that love is a performance and connection is a tool. It shows us that his coldest female didn't just teach him how to be cool, she taught him how to be cold. Before moving on, man, I need to know what you all thought of Alamo's backstory. Did it change your perception on him? Let's talk about it all in the comments below. Now cut to the present day where we last saw Rue closing her eyes as Alamo rides towards her on his horse with club in hand, ready to hit her in the face, but he doesn't strike. He rides past Rue, a terrifying promise that the violence has only been delayed slightly. Alamo gets off his horse and slowly walks towards Rue to hit her on foot in the face with a club as Rue begs and pleads with him as she says that she knows that the getaway driver was Faye and she promises to get his money that was stolen from him back as he stops from hitting her yet again. Meanwhile, we cut to Faye sampling the stolen fake drugs from Alamo as she's gotten diarrhea from them as she's talking on the phone with Rue, who asks for her to do her a favor. Rue wants Faye to help her get in a picture of the key to open Wayne's safe, which was actually brought up in episode 1 of the season, as she wants this key to break into the safe, promising Faye that she'll be able to get some of the money, but there's one problem. Faye has fallen in love with this Nazi Wayne. We watch as he puts a Nazi cap on her and promises her a better future, that she'll no longer have to be Lori's mule, and plans on having fair-skinned babies with her as he gives her a Nazi tattoo. Now, despite her loyalty towards Wayne, Rue convinces Faye to helping her by reminding her about what happened with her and Fez back in season 2, as she agrees to taking a picture of the safe's key. That way Alamo can make a duplicate with a 3D printer. Now, before moving on, we actually get a little bit of a glimpse into this toxic relationship between Wayne and Faye, as she has to pretend that she wasn't on the phone with Rue and tries to explain that the drugs that were stolen weren't actually real. But Wayne isn't willing to hear her out because he's too worried about his girl taking drugs and what that would do to their future kids, as they say each other's nicknames while making up, as the plan is set for Lori and Alamo to meet up. Now, during this, Rue lets the DEA know it's showtime. Wayne and Faye are blowing kisses and hearts at each other as Alamo and his crew load up their guns, and Rue shows him that Faye took the picture of the key as the meeting starts and Lori's crew arrives. As Rue finds herself in a room full of guns just waiting to go off, Alamo and Lori discuss business. Lori brings up one of Alamo's businesses called the Gold Rush Medical Services, where he takes some of his girls to Mexico to get plastic surgery. Lori wants to use this operation as another way to bring in fentanyl from Mexico and using one of Alamo's girls to do so. Now, if Alamo doesn't want to do business with Lori, Lori says that she plans on taking the stolen items she took from him and taking them to the FBI. Now, with the border being shut down soon, the deal for Alamo to have one of his girls get surgery and bringing over 80 kilos worth of drugs, and upon a return, Alamo will get his stuff back all before the border is shut down and everyone leaves happy. Now, they both spit in their hands and they make this deal as Alamo pulls Lori close in to warn her that he'll put an end to her and her whole operations if she screws him over. Now, if I were to guess, I would bet that Alamo's going to choose either Kitty or Magic to being the one to do this job, as we know that he plans to most likely screw over Lori and taking the drugs for himself. Now, later that night, Rue meets with the DEA agents who are happy with her, and if everything works out in their favor, Rue's case will go in her favor according to them. As we'll talk about later, I don't see a world in which Rue survives all this and doesn't have to experience some prison time by the end of this season. Now, from the drug game to the OnlyFans world, we cut to Rue trying to warn Maddie about partnering with Alamo. But we can see that Maddie is laser focused on building a brand that doesn't answer to anyone. Cut to her at the Silver Slipper with a photo shoot with Cassie, Kitty, Magic, all prepping for the next big push as she is just simply laying the groundwork. Now, this is where Maddie officially meets Bishop as she tries to get Alamo to give the girls some time off so that she can introduce these girls to more people to help them grow their profiles, but Alamo isn't on board with this idea. Remember the opening scene with Alamo and how he feels about being screwed over again, whether it be with Lori, Rue, and now possibly Maddie. But we see Bishop is in agreement that there are other people that are trying to screw with him, but he doesn't believe Maddie is one of them. As I said weeks ago, Maddie's one of my favorite characters, and I really do hope that it's not too late before Maddie wakes up and smells the roses about Alamo. Man, I was really hoping that Rue was going to tell Maddie the truth about Alamo and who she's getting the business with, but the more I thought about it, the words Rue and truth don't ever go hand in hand. I just hope that Maddie doesn't get hurt or worse, gets killed after maybe getting caught in between Alamo's mess with what's going on with Lori. Now here's where we cut to a whole nother show as we see Rue is with Jules. Jules is painted in front of Rue as Rue talks about the American dream, a nuclear family, a normal life with having kids that could magically solve her problems. Now, Jules calls this out as a fantasy, and the conversation starts to get a little toxic. Rue goes on about wanting to be with someone who loves her and thinks will give her purpose to live for something greater than herself. Now, this is where Jules brings up their last time being together and how it was a mistake and how she's not reliable and how Rue and her relationship was pretty much in Rue's head the whole time. And honestly, she isn't lying. Now, Rue pushes back and talks about Jules' relationship with Ellis, who, again, we know is a married man, and she says is basically keeping Jules as a toy, as that word basically kind of triggers Jules as she slaps Rue off of her chair and she tells her to leave before Ellis arrives soon. I think this is the first time we've seen Jules physically hit Rue in a moment of anger. So that's kind of a new element of their relationship. Like I said, things were starting to get toxic between these two. But going back to the moment, this kind of explains Jules' breakdown with Lexi a few episodes ago. She wants to do something on her own, not with the help of Ellis, not with the help of anyone else, but thinking about that painting scene. She wanted her painting to be accepted by others, but when they told her no, that it wasn't what they wanted, and I think in her head, she heard that they didn't want her. Jules is yearning for love and true affection from someone who doesn't treat her like a toy, or someone like Rue who just pops in and out of her life when it's convenient for them. Now, we see Rue in the elevator leaving as she begins crying, knowing that she can't find happiness in life and she can't find peace or love in the face of all the terrible stuff that she's currently experiencing. Now, let's talk about this scene for a second. I get that this was pretty much meant to serve as more of a scene for Rue and her wanting to have some normalcy. She talks about kids, a home, all of these being attempts to lock herself into something that's stable. And Jules labeling it a fantasy because her own life is a collage of exploitation from Ellis and their relationship is unreliable. But I can't help but to feel like the show has zero clue on what to do with Jules, and honestly, this has been an issue since season 2. Now, as far as this season goes, I don't know if it was like a scheduling issue with Jules, because it just feels like she's just being thrown into the show just for the sake of her being there for Rue. Very similar to how I feel like Nate is only here to service Cassie's story. Now, speaking of, back with Cassie, she's finally getting ready to film her one scene, and this being her opportunity to change her careers, as we can see that she's a little bit nervous. Now, the star of the show, Dylan, tries to give her some advice, but as he's about to find out, Cassie is way past the point of acting. As the cameras roll, we see something snaps inside of Cassie as she breaks character. She starts dropping lines about her current situation with Nate, about her past with Maddie, about how she's just trying to survive. Obviously, none of this is in the script, but Dylan plays along, as does Patty. Cassie pours her soul out about how she stole Nate and how she is now paying the price for it. The scene ends as Cassie's life has become a performance, so when she finally acts, it's just her leaking her real life trauma into the situation. And surprisingly, it worked. Patty pulls her to her side, as this is where things get a little bit more interesting. Patty starts digging into who Cassie really is, as Lexi brings up that she's into OnlyFans. Now, it's clear that Lexi was trying to sabotage her sister in this situation, which is kind of messed up, and she's being very judgmental as she normally is, but it ends up working in her sister's favor. Now, Cassie explains the fetishes and different requests that she gets from OnlyFans as the conversation goes into how OnlyFans can become this empowering expression for women. She tells Patty and the director that the site makes her feel seen and feel powerful. As Patty and the director are eating this up, they see old Hollywood in her story as they offer her a much larger role on the show, but under one condition. She has to leave OnlyFans world behind. And in true Cassie fashion, she doesn't hesitate as she says yes immediately. Now outside, we find Cassie jumping in and screaming in joy as her sister reminds her that in order for her dreams to come true, she will have to delete her OnlyFans for good this time around. Now in her apartment, we watch as Cassie slowly tries to build up the courage to delete her account as she's practicing the delete motion with her finger as she walks towards her computer. We see hundreds, if not thousands, of different messages that's been sent to her by her fans as she hovers over the delete option as it asks if she's sure that she wants to do this. Cassie begins to pray as she can't do it, and she ends up calling Nate. Now, Nate doesn't answer the call, so Cassie has to be an adult, and she makes a decision as she ultimately deletes her account to pursue her dreams as an actress. Let's talk about Cassie and her decision. We watch as Cassie goes from one obsession to the next without thought about her future. Personally, I'm surprised that she didn't put her account on hold or maybe archive it. If that's a thing you could do on OnlyFans, I'm not sure. Let me know in the comments below. But no, she decides to burn bridges before she even crosses the new one, and I bet Maddie won't be happy to hear the news. But looking at the bigger picture as it pertains to Cassie's character and her story, it just continues to show a pattern. Whether it's Nate or her OnlyFans or now acting, she's addicted to the idea of new life and not the work it takes to keep it. She's chasing a dream with zero guarantee, and I doubt this is going to work out for her. Now, while Cassie is celebrating, we see Lexi is busy taking the credit for the whole situation. Patty is impressed by Lexi's insight into her sister's career as she tasks Lexi with writing the new Cassie storyline into the show. The irony here is hilarious because the person who shamed and mocked her own sister for doing OnlyFans is now the person in charge of writing her sister's fictional life. To me, this whole scene kind of felt like a little bit of like real life commentary on Hollywood, because you hear about stories all the time about how people write about lives and struggles that they've only ever observed from afar, or worse, they've just judged people. But I tell you what, if there is one thing we know about Lexi, season 2's play showed us that she definitely knows how to write about her family and friends and has no shame in doing so. Now, sticking with the Howard sisters for a little bit here, we see Lexi talking to Gilly, who suggests that she kill off Cassie's character in the storyline because shows need stakes, otherwise it's just a bunch of characters talking to one another. Now, I could be wrong, but I don't think I am because I feel like this was 1000% foreshadowing for Cassie. All this buildup of Cassie finally getting her big break. Is this all just to make her inevitable death being tied into what's going on with Maddie and Alamo and Nate and Nas? I don't know if y'all remember my prediction back in episode 1, but it goes back to the scene with Nate and Cassie sharing dinner with the candles surrounding them, and we had like this hard cut to seeing Alamo's girl actually dying. I think the show has been planting the seeds of Cassie's death, and it's been planted since the start of this season. Now, speaking of death, we see Cassie receiving a delivery, and inside she finds a note that says answer the phone with her husband Nate's finger inside. Now we cut to Nate, who's screaming and yelling at the endangered plant that's stalling his construction business as Nas's henchman is watching him, and he decides to beat Nate up yet again as Nate thinks that he's in control in the situation by stepping all over the flowers, but again, the henchman lets him know who's in control. I could have went without this Nate scene if I'm being honest with you all, because like I said earlier, I feel like Nate and Jules are living in completely different shows than everyone else. It's becoming really apparent that Nate and Jules have been completely wasted this season. I would say Nate has had more to do than Jules, but not much more if we're being honest. And honestly, I don't see that changing with only 2 episodes left. Now switching gears and going back to Rue, we see her at the 3D printing shop and she's getting Wayne's key copy. Now, she finds out this is going to be about an hour or so we watch as Rue decides to go to church. Now, in church, she gets a call from her mom, and it's actually her mom this time around, it's not the DEA. This, to me, was a beautiful, gut-wrenching scene that really showcased how incredible Zendaya really is as an actress. They have a conversation about Rue's newfound belief in God and how she sees the correlation in God's existence to her having redemption, and if there's redemption, there's salvation. Rue doesn't want to be stuck in her mistakes that she's made in the past. She just wants to be free, and she wants the opportunity to start over and being forgiven. She tells her mom that she misses her, and she says that she'll be seeing her mom soon, as she tells her mom that she loves her and she apologizes for making things hard on her. As she says she's coming home, we actually cut to seeing her mom for the first time this season as they hang up. We're left with Rue in church looking at God and smiling and praying. Yeah, it's in this moment that kind of told me that unfortunately, we won't be seeing Rue making it home anytime soon. Look, man, rule 101 with television and drama and movies is if a character is in the middle of a shitstorm and they say something like they're coming home soon, they're probably not going to make it home anytime soon. Honestly, seeing Leslie, her mom, for the first time this season kind of felt more like a goodbye than a hello. Now, my theory at the beginning of this season was Rue's going to probably end up dead, but that's kind of changed for me in the recent episodes. Now, we've seen Rue dodging death from the very beginning of the show, so I don't think that her dying is really a realistic possibility. There's still like a small chance that will happen, but regardless of her dying or not, I don't think she's going to be making it home either. I really feel confident now that she's going to probably end up in prison by the end of the season. With all the calls and mentions of Fez being in jail and the talk of second chances, I think prison might be the only place where she can actually be safe from her own impulses. It's a grim kind of salvation, but it's the reality of the situation. Now, thinking about the 2 main characters this season, that being Rue and Cassie, and how they're taking different paths in their storylines, but this episode, to me, really kind of highlighted the illusion of choice. Cassie thinks she's choosing a career, but she's really just choosing a new master. Rue thinks she's choosing home, but she might just be headed to a prison cell. What do you all think? Is Lexi gonna kill off Cassie's character in the script, or is the show, Euphoria, gonna kill her off for real? And when it comes to Rue, do you all think she's actually going on a path of redemption? Now, as we come to the close of this episode, we see Rue handing over the key to Alamo, but he gives it back to her and tells her that she should see it through since this is her own plan to get his money back from Lori. We see Rue feeding Alamo's snake, and this is where she learns about the snake's previous owner from Bishop as we get more biblical connections. Now, I think we've all heard this story before, but I know I definitely have, and that being the same story about the snake not eating, and it's because of them making room to eat their owner. The moral of the story being that a snake is a snake at the end of the day, and just because they grow close to you doesn't mean that their intentions aren't to eat you. Now, Alamo didn't believe in this snake story, but saw the moral of the story and uses this snake as a reminder, and he bought the snake from its previous owner. That way, he can always remember to keep an eye out on people's true intentions. It's here that Bishop mentions that Rue needs to get into this safe, because if not, it would really be a shame that he would have to talk to her mom again about how well she's doing. Basically saying without saying, if you don't get the job done, he knows where her mom is and will be paying her a visit if Rue doesn't get the job done. Now, going back to that snake story, I want to know from you all, who do you all think is the biggest snake in Rue's life? Is it Lori? Is it Alamo? Is it Rue herself? Again, this scene to me served as a warning to Rue to look closer at who she can trust and to understand the true nature of the danger that surrounds her. Now, we end this episode with Rue on the road as she's trying to listen to her Bible audiobook, seeking some type of guidance, but it's not working. Now, the audio's cutting in and out, and it kind of mirrors her internal chaos that she's currently experiencing. Now, Rue's distracted and she begins swerving in the road as a truck is heading her way, and at the very last second, she manages to avoid a collision. Now, was that a sign from God, a moment of divine intervention telling her, not yet, Rue, you still have a purpose? Or was it just a terrifying wake-up call, a brush with morality that shocks her system? Either way, it signals a shift. Now, if that wasn't a sign, what she sees next absolutely is, as she finds a burning literal tree right in front of her. Now, if you're even a little bit familiar with the biblical stories, this immediately connects to Moses and the burning bush. Let's break it down for a second. The story goes, Moses is out in the wilderness when he sees a bush on fire that doesn't burn up. Confused, he approaches it, and God calls out to him from within the bush. God tells him to take off his sandals because the ground he's standing on is holy, and it's a divine encounter where God gives Moses a mission. Now, let's apply that story to Rue. She's in her own wilderness, lost in the desert of addiction, debt, and danger. She's staring at this burning tree that metaphorically isn't being consumed by the flames, but instead her despair. It's God or the universe calling to her, and it's a moment of clarity telling her that even amidst the fire and the chaos, she won't be consumed. The moral of Moses' story is about trusting God's purpose, and even when you're in the wilderness, even when the path is unclear. For Rue, seeing that burning tree is her moment of spiritual awakening, her realization that everything she's enduring has a purpose. I believe that she now truly believes that she has a purpose to see this through, to face these challenges head on, not to just survive, but to transcend. She won't be consumed by the darkness. She will come out the other side, a new person, transformed by the fire, not destroyed by it. It's her divine calling to finally breaking free and become who she's meant to be. Yeah, this was a really interesting, biblical, symbolic way to end this episode. From the metaphorical snake that threatens to devour Rue to Bishop's threats, all leading to Rue's burning bush moment. It sets Rue on the path to find less about getting clean and more about spiritual redemption and finding a deeper purpose through immense struggle. Do you all think this is Rue's true turning point? Is the burning tree truly a sign of divine intervention or a desperate mind looking for meaning? So overall, despite Jules and Rue feeling like they're out of place and kind of unnecessary to the overall story, I thought this was yet another solid episode of Euphoria. I thought the opening of this episode was great. Again, shout out to Danielle Deadwyler who did her thing. I thought Zendaya's performance was incredible, as she normally is. I am really growing to really have fun with Cassie's storyline, and I've been having fun with it with a couple weeks now, and there are some great moments of symbolism and just some really deep, thought-provoking moments in this episode. With all that being said, that will conclude my breakdown of Euphoria Season 3, Episode 6. Now, my favorite part of doing these breakdowns is throwing a question to you all. What did you think of this episode? From the metaphors, the themes, the backstory, all the stuff that we got with Cassie, Rue, Alamo, Lori, the deal they struck. What did you all think about the Maddie situation? What do you all think about Nate and Jules? Do you feel like they're being wasted? Let's talk about it all in the comments below. Thank you all for watching or listening to this week's breakdown. If you all have made it to this point in the breakdown, I can't thank y'all enough for the continued support. Do me a favor, put in the comments right now, #Mama Brown. If you all are watching this on YouTube, I would really appreciate it if you all can like the video. When you all like the video, you can also hype up the video, what helps the video get into new viewers, which, speaking of new viewers, definitely consider hitting the share button. Share this video with anyone and everyone you know that loves talking about this show. And last but not least, consider sticking around by subscribing to the channel today. Now, if you all are listening to this week's breakdown on podcasts via Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you all get your podcasts from, please leave your thoughts of this episode in the comments below and consider following the podcast, and I would love it if you all can give me a 5-star review. Alrighty, y'all, I'll be back pretty soon with my breakdown of the new trailer for next week's episode. But in the meantime, thank you all again for watching or listening. Check out some of my recent breakdowns for the latest big movies of Obsession and Is God Is. And of course, we'll be talking about The Boys finale pretty soon. But again, I thank you all for watching or listening. Hope you all remember to stay safe. Don't forget you all are awesome. And I'll catch you all on the next breakdown.